Sure.
Would you mind doing like a quick introduction about yourself? Like a few sentences, I don't know, where you grew up, like what you're doing now, that kind of thing.
I'm Anna, and I was born in the States, but I've moved around a lot my whole life. So I moved to Japan, and I like lived back and forth between Japan and the US throughout my whole childhood. I currently live in London, and here I am doing like content marketing at a Japanese agency based in London.
Cool, cool. And like which part of the US were you born in or were you living in?
I was born in Maryland, which is near Washington, D.C. It's on the East
Yeah.
Coast.
Okay, so I wanted to kind of start with your, I guess, post college life. Um,
Yeah.
so or maybe just tell the people like what did you study in college?
I studied public relations. I went to Penn State University, which is in Pennsylvania.
And I know you got a job in New York right after graduation.
Yes.
And then so how long were you in New York?
I lived in New York for about 2.5 years. Yeah, until like 2017, I think.
Okay, cool. And how was your like general experience there? Like what was it like?
I absolutely love New York. I want to move back there if I can eventually. I don't know, I just really liked it. I lived in Brooklyn and I commuted to work in Manhattan, and I really liked that lifestyle. I don't really like I don't know, Manhattan, people that live in Manhattan, they pay crazy rent
Yeah.
and you don't get much space. And I feel like Brooklyn has obviously more space and it has like more my type of vibe, like more laid back, and it has like lots of cool bars and restaurants and lots of like more parks. It's still not that green, but it has, a little bit more greenery than Manhattan. And it has a lot more like diversity and different backgrounds of people. And yeah, I just really enjoyed exploring Brooklyn and even my own neighborhood. Like I lived in Clinton Hill neighborhood, and I think it's even changed since the time I've left. So I'm curious to see what it's like now. But yeah, I love New York. I think it's
Cool,
an amazing
cool.
city.
So
Yeah.
then why did you leave? Like what made you want to quit your job?
Well, there was a few things like I don't know, I just had this desire, like this really strong desire to
Mm.
change my life in a really dramatic way. And a year before I quit my job, I traveled to Guatemala alone, and that was my first solo trip. But that was only like 10 days. It was just like a summer holiday. And on that trip, I met a lot of backpackers and people that were doing really long trips by themselves. And also, when I was living in New York, I met this girl named Jennifer who had backpacked alone for like, I don't know, I think more than a year.
Mm.
And she was in a corporate job, like she was in the advertising industry as well. And that's the industry I was in. And she was like, you only live once, like if you want to do something you should do it. Yeah, this is kind of leading into my
Yeah.
backpacking. So but yeah, like after like the combination of things, I just kind of really felt like, okay, I need to do this. So I started saving some money and really starting to plan it.
Mm.
And then yeah, I quit my job in summer, or no, it was I guess November of 2017. And then I started traveling around Southeast Asia for 8 months. It
Yeah.
was really, really fun. Yeah.
Nice. And what were some of the places that you visited?
Pretty much did all the countries in Southeast Asia. So I
Yeah.
started in Taiwan, and then I went to Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia. I went to Singapore. I went to Thailand, Vietnam, Laos. Like basically, I think
Yeah.
every country I
Right.
went to.
Right.
So yeah,
Cool.
it was really fun.
Did you have a favorite or like some highlights of places to go?
I well, there were a few places that I was kind of surprised that I liked, like Myanmar.
Mm.
I really liked Myanmar. It's really beautiful and it's relatively untouched. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not totally untouched. But tourism is still in its infancy pretty much.
Right, right.
So compared to other countries like Thailand, Vietnam, where like tourism is super developed, it was really refreshing to go to Myanmar where it's relatively new. And I also really liked Sri Lanka. Yeah, I feel like Sri Lanka is not really on anyone's radar, at least if
Yeah.
you're from the West.
I'm just wondering, with that trip, like how much planning did you have to do? Did you have a whole route, or was it just like,
I didn't really, I just knew the region. I was like, okay, I want to stay in Southeast Asia, but I kind of planned it based on like the people I met and the
yeah,
places
yeah,
that were close by. Like the reason why I started in Taiwan was just because the flights were super cheap from Japan. Because
right,
I went to Japan in between to visit my parents before starting the
yeah,
travel. So, yeah, the flights were just super cheap to go to Taiwan. And then I just decided from there, like kind of what's closest. So like Philippines is relatively close to Taiwan, so that's why I went to the Philippines, and it was just like kind of random and meeting people and things
yeah,
like that.
cool, cool.
So,
And then afterwards, did you go straight to Tokyo in Japan?
yeah, so afterwards, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just was running low on money and I couldn't like go to zero, and start from literally no money. So I was like, okay, I should probably like start making money again. So I went back home to Tokyo where my parents live, and I was like, I didn't know if I wanted to stay there long term because I've lived in Tokyo for a long time and I wasn't sure if I wanted to like experience it again, but I've never worked there professionally. So I was like, maybe this is a good opportunity for me to see what it's like to be a working professional in Japan.
Yeah.
So I got a job as a recruiter, which is like very typical of people that move to Tokyo who are not native Japanese speakers.
Mm.
My Japanese is quite good, I guess. It's like it's fine, but it's not native. So in Japan, it's really difficult to get a job if you're not a native Japanese speaker. There's other jobs like you can become an English teacher, things like that, but I can't teach people anything. So I was like, I'm not gonna become an English teacher. So I became a recruiter, which is it's a really fun job, I think, and you learn a lot. But I didn't want to do that forever. So yeah, that's why I'm not doing it right now. But it was a good experience.
Yeah, definitely. Did you were there any major differences like between working in the US and in Japan?
Yes. I think it's probably what people assume are the differences, like work-life balance is quite
Yeah.
poor. Um, it's very conservative, like not conservative, but there's just a lot of rules. Like, for
Okay.
example, if you're a woman, typically you have like pretty much a uniform that you have to
Oh,
wear
really?
every day.
Yeah.
It's like a blazer, a skirt, a long skirt with like tights underneath, and all
Mm.
the ladies wear like the same kind of um shoes, like they're like little heeled shoes, and you have to give your business card in the proper way, and things like that, where it's just like there's a lot of structure and everyone goes to lunch at the same exact time, noon on the dot every single day. Everyone comes to work at the same time. In terms of like leaving work, like a lot of people work quite late. Like on the train, I would always see people like standing and sleeping on the
Oh,
train,
really?
which is
Yeah.
really sad.
Yeah.
Um, my work-life balance was okay because uh, as a recruiter, you kind of work independently and you put in the work that you think is necessary. So if you work hard during the day, then you don't necessarily have to work long hours. But I had colleagues that worked really long hours, so it just depends on you. Um, but yeah, in New York, like I don't know. I mean, New Yorkers work really late too, like if they want to, but I do think there's a bit more flexibility in terms of the working style and what people wear and things like that.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I guess it sounds like just general like cultural differences between the two countries.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it just takes some getting used to. I'm not saying like one is better than the other. It's just, yeah, they're just different.
Cool. And then so how long were you in Tokyo for?
It was also 2.5 years.
Happy.
Seems
Cool.
like 2.5 years is like my
Yeah.
leaping point, but yeah, it was about 2.5 years.
Do you have any favorite places in Tokyo, like places you recommend people visit?
Yeah. I really like Shimokitazawa, which is this neighborhood kind of close to Shibuya. It's a few stops away from Shibuya, which is it's a major neighborhood.
Yeah.
Shimokitazawa is known for its vintage shops and cool cafes. There's all like the young hip people hang out in Shimo. The I call it Shimo, but it's just a long name. But yeah, it's just a really fun place to hang out and go shopping and just walk around. Like there's a lot of cool little streets and there's always new places popping up. It's like an ever-changing neighborhood. So I really like Shimokitazawa. Where else do I recommend? Nakameguro is also a place I really like. Kind of similar to Shimokitazawa, but a little bit more high end, I guess.
Okay.
Like, I guess it's like when the kids from Shimokitazawa age like 10 years, then they
Yeah.
go to Nakameguro, like when they have a bit more money,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess. But yeah, those two neighborhoods I really like.
Nice. Cool, cool. And then, so what kind of sparked like the move to London?
Well, that was purely due to circumstance. So
Okay.
my fiance, he got a job in London. We weren't engaged when we moved, or like when we made the decision to move.
Yeah.
He, so we were just dating at the time, but I knew that I didn't want to do long distance. We both didn't want to do long distance, and so we had to figure out a way for me to move to London with him. And this was November, or no, it was last summer, so summer 2020, in the height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like everyone was looking for work, and I wanted to get out of recruitment, but had been doing that for the past 2.5 years. So I was like, how am I going to find a job outside of recruitment in London where I've never worked? So luckily, because I'm a Japanese citizen, I was able to come over on a working holiday visa. I think New Zealand is also part of the working holiday scheme
Yeah, I
for
know
visas.
lots of New Zealanders that go to Japan.
Yeah.
I mean, go
Yeah.
to
So
London. Yeah.
yeah, it's a great visa because like I feel like in Australia, if you get the working holiday, you have to work on a farm.
Mm.
But in the UK, there's no such thing as that. It was a great solution for us. And yeah, I got lucky through because I was also doing freelance writing in Japan on the side of my recruiting job. So through my freelance work, I was able to find a marketing job in London. Yeah, it's worked out and I really, really like London so far.
Have I been to London?
Yeah.
I visited for a few days a few years ago.
Okay.
It seemed to be quite like hectic. A lot of people, a lot of things going on.
Well, when I first moved here, it was really dead because of COVID.
Right, yeah.
But now it's fully back on normal. Everything's normal. And yeah, it can get quite hectic, I guess, if you're downtown. But yeah, it's okay if you're not like in the heart of the city.
Okay, I just want to talk about veganism for a second.
Sure. Sure.
So how long have you been vegan now?
I've been vegan for 6 years. Yeah, about
Okay,
6 years.
nice. So you don't have to explain like the entire reason, but do you remember if there was like one thing or a certain thing that like sparked it? Or...
It's very cliche, but I watched a documentary called Vegucated. It was on Netflix back in 2015.
Yeah.
And yeah, I watched Vegucated and it's mostly about like animal rights, but it also touches on the environment. I've never been a huge like animal lover. Like I would not call myself like I don't even really like dogs, which is like I know it's like a crime to say, but I don't know why, but something about that movie, a huge shift in my brain where I realized that I didn't really want to participate in the animal agriculture industry or like it just opened my eyes to how a simple change, how like not eating animal products can do so much good for the world and for the animals. So I decided not overnight, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna have like one more day of normal eating, and then tomorrow I'm gonna start being vegan. I gave up dairy and meat quite easily, but I ate fish periodically, like here and there, for the first 6 months or so, especially when I would go out to eat. And I was single at the time, so like I was going on Tinder dates and things like that, and sometimes people would take me on take me to places where like there were no vegan options. So I would like eat fish if I was going on like a first date or something. But eventually I phased out that part of my diet, and I became completely vegan. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And were you in the US like at this time? Or where were you
Yeah,
living?
I was in the US. So I started being vegan my final year of college.
Okay.
And then the rest of the time I was in New York after that.
Cool. Nice. And I know you've lived in a few different places. So what was the experience like? Like, I guess New York's pretty easy, but what about when you were backpacking?
When I was backpacking, it was interesting. So it wasn't actually so difficult. I mean, granted, I couldn't communicate
Mm.
obviously because I didn't speak the local language. But luckily, a lot of places, especially if you're in like a place that's used to tourists, they speak English. So if you say like no meat, no egg, no dairy, they will understand you. And honestly, most Southeast Asian countries don't use that much dairy in their cooking, so that part is quite easy. But I'm sure I've had dishes with fish sauce or some sort of like fish
Okay.
element in it, and I just, you can only try your best. I did my best. Like I had so many sad breakfasts where it was like bread and mashed banana because that was the only thing I could eat. Like I
Right.
had so many toast with mashed banana.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was really sad. But like, because at the hostel, they'll give you breakfast, but usually it's like eggs or like a waffle or like things like that where it's like you can't ask for it to be
Yeah.
vegan. So I would just have like really sad breakfast all the time. But in terms of like restaurants and stuff, it was, I wouldn't say easy, but it was easy to get by and like make small changes here and there.
Yeah, because I think I went like kind of plant-based around the same time as you,
Okay.
but I basically was like pescatarian for 1 year and then
Yeah.
I went like fully vegan. And I guess I have like a similar perspective in the sense that like I obviously if I'm at home, I'm like 100% vegan, but
Yeah.
then it's also kind of like a privilege thing, right? If you go to another country,
Yeah.
like some
Yeah.
people like they barely have enough food, so to say like I'm not going to eat any of this, I need things to be like a certain way, is
Yeah.
almost a bit like I don't know, like privileged.
I think you really have to be aware of the context when you're vegan. Like if you're in a first world country like, Japan, US, New Zealand, then I think it's okay to have boundaries like this. But yeah, if people are making food for you on like a farm in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
then you have to deal with what's given to you, I think. Or at least, say what you can eat and what you cannot eat. And if they make mistakes, then it's okay. Like you're not gonna die if you eat like a tiny piece of, I don't know, like fish or something. So
Right. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Going into your YouTube just quickly, like what made you kind of want to start videos? Was it just that veganism promoting it?
so I've been on YouTube here and there for the
Yeah.
past few years. I think I started it when I was in New York, but I was never consistent with it. And I don't know, I was just like always on Instagram, and it's really hard. I don't know how people juggle like Instagram, YouTube, and like a full-time job or like and TikTok. There's so many platforms. I don't know how people do it, but I just couldn't do everything. Like I was like pretty much focused on Instagram for a while. When we moved to London, I started getting more into it. First, it was because I didn't have a full-time job, and I was like, okay, I'll just like be more active on YouTube and see what kind of videos I can make. And I was like super excited to be in London because the vegan scene here is so good, and compared to Tokyo, it's like heaven here. So I just wanted to like try everything, and I thought it would be fun to like do taste test videos, from my perspective, because I don't think there's that many vegan YouTubers who have the same experience as me. So I thought it could be a cool perspective. Yeah, even though I'm working full time now, I'm still quite consistent with my videos, and I'm just like on a routine now. I think you just need a routine to be consistent, and you need to be disciplined to keep that routine. And yeah, it just took that like extra effort, I guess, for me to start making videos consistently.
Nice. Yeah, I think your like your general life has been super interesting. So it's
Good.
cool that I
Thank
like
you.
listened to your channel because I literally like I want to go to Japan. I want to like go to London maybe. So um
Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
do you have any idea of your future plans? Like, do you think you'll go back to Japan, or I know your husband is French, right? So do you think
Yeah,
you'll
yeah,
be there, or
yeah. He's
what?
French.
What's the plan?
I don't know, to be honest. Like, I really like London more than I thought I would, so I would be happy to stay here for a few more years.
Mm.
Obviously, the visa is limited to 2 years, so I have to kind of figure out, like,
Yeah.
I have to probably leave and then come back if I want to stay in London. But Japan is a maybe. I don't know. I don't know if we would return anytime soon, but I do have like lots of ties to Japan, obviously my family and stuff. So I can see myself moving back to Japan. I can also see us moving to the US because my sister lives in the US, and my family might also move back there eventually. So that's also an option, but also like Paris could be an option. I don't really know. Um, so yeah, I guess I'll wait and see.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah, I'm excited to see. I will list like your Instagram and YouTube in the description so everyone can go check it out. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me.